The old Zenith console TV dominated the corner of our damp Michigan basement. Its faux wood veneer was peeling, and the rabbit ears were perpetually askew, catching only snippets of the world beyond our small town. It was my only company on those long, lonely nights after my parents went to bed. The rest of the house creaked and groaned, like an old man settling in for the night, the sounds amplifying the silence. Downstairs, though, a different kind of silence reigned. The heavy, musty silence of forgotten things and the unsettling hum of the ancient furnace. In Channel 3. Channel 3 wasn't your typical static. It wasn't the snow of disconnected signals or the fuzzy ghosts of distant broadcasts. It was a swirling, pulsating gray fog, a vortex of visual noise that seemed to writhe and shift with a disturbing, almost organic quality. And beneath it, a constant, high-pitched whine, like feedback from a broken amp. Or maybe something else. It burrowed under your skin, that sound, a constant, unsettling presence that made the hairs on the back of your neck prickle. Locals whispered that the abandoned Cranbrook Mental Hospital on the edge of town somehow interfered with the signal, bleeding into our screens. They said the patient's tormented energy seeped into the airwaves. I didn't believe in ghosts, but Channel 3 made me question everything. One particularly humid July night, the swirling fog began to coalesce. Shapes emerged, vague and indistinct at first, then solidifying into the dimly lit corner of a padded cell. The image flickered, unstable, as if struggling to maintain its form. A bare bulb, swinging gently, cast long, distorted shadows across peeling, yellowed wallpaper, stained with what looked disturbingly like blood. My heart hammered in my chest, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man tall and gaunt, dressed in a tattered hospital gown. His face was obscured by the flickering light, but I could feel his presence, a palpable weight in the air, something cold and watchful. He moved slowly, deliberately, towards the camera, dragging one foot slightly, each step accompanied by a sickening crackle, as if the very air was charged with static. The whine intensified, becoming a piercing shriek that made my teeth ache. I fumbled for the remote, my hands slick with sweat, but I was frozen, transfixed by the unfolding horror. As the figure approached, the camera shook violently, the image distorting, the edges blurring into the swirling gray fog. Just as his face came into the flickering light, I saw it. His skin was stretched taut over bone, his eyes wide and black, filled with a depthless, hollow terror. His mouth was open in a silent scream, a gaping maw of darkness. For a split second our eyes met, and then the screen went black. The whine stopped. The silence that followed was absolute, heavier than the basement's musty stillness. I scrambled back, knocking over a stack of dusty photo albums. I ran upstairs, the image of that face seared into my mind. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe the ravings of a kid obsessed with a broken TV? But I never forgot. Decades later, living in a sleek, modern apartment with a 60-inch smart TV, I still hear that whine in my dreams. And sometimes in the reflection of the screen, in the dead of night, I see that face, contorted in a silent scream, a chilling reminder of the night the static came to life. Baker's Grove Playground was a rusting testament to forgotten childhoods. Tucked away at the edge of our small Indiana town, past the boarded-up feed store and Mrs. Henderson's overgrown rose bushes, it sat in perpetual twilight, even on the brightest summer days. The swings creaked mournfully, their chains rusted orange, the slide blistered with peeling lead paint, a hazard the town council couldn't be bothered to fix. Kids stayed away, drawn instead to the shiny new playground by the community pool. They whispered stories about Baker's Grove, tales of strange occurrences, shadowy figures, and the chilling laughter of unseen children. Old Man Withers, who lived in the ramshackle house across the street, swore he saw a little girl in a blue dress swinging on the swing set at midnight, her laughter echoing through the empty streets. They called it the haunted playground, and me being the morbidly curious kid I was drawn to it like a fly to a flickering porch light. I'd go there at dusk, That magical hour when the fireflies blinked to life and the air grew thick with the scent of honeysuckle and impending darkness. The park was always deserted then, shrouded in an unsettling quiet, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant rumble of a passing pickup truck. I'd sit on the rusty swings, pushing off gently, the metallic groan a melancholic soundtrack to the fading light. It was a lonely place, but I found a strange solace in its desolation, a sense of kinship with the forgotten playground and its silent, watchful trees. One evening, as I sat there, lost in the swirling currents of preteen angst, I noticed a figure standing near the edge of the woods, just beyond the reach of the single flickering streetlight that cast long, distorted shadows across the cracked asphalt. It was a girl, about my age, dressed in a faded blue sundress, her long, dark hair obscuring her face. She didn't move, just stood there watching me, a statue in the deepening gloom. I called out to her, my voice a thin thread of sound that seemed to unravel in the stillness. "Hello?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. No response. She just continued to stare, her presence unnerving, her silence amplifying the isolation of the deserted playground. The air around me grew colder, the shadows lengthening, as if her presence had somehow drawn the darkness closer. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. I got off the swing, the rusty chains groaning in protest, and slowly approached her, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. As I drew closer, the details of her appearance became more distinct, more unsettling. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, as if the fading light struggled to find purchase on its surface. Her eyes, large and dark, seemed to glow faintly in the deepening twilight, two pools of shadowed light that held a depth I couldn't fathom, a knowledge that seemed both ancient and profoundly sad. I was a few feet away, my hand outstretched hesitantly, when a gust of wind rustled through the trees, sending a shiver down my spine. The girl's hair lifted, revealing her face for the briefest of moments. Her eyes, wide and hollow, stared straight through me, filled with a sadness so profound it made my breath catch in my throat. Her lips were parted slightly as if she were about to speak, but no sound emerged. Then, as abruptly as the wind had risen, it died down, and the girl was gone. One moment she was there, a silent, watchful presence at the edge of the trees, and the next she had vanished, leaving behind only the rustling leaves and the deepening shadows. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, convinced I'd imagined her, a figment of the encroaching darkness, a trick of the light and shadow. But the lingering unease, the cold knot in my stomach, the sudden, palpable absence in the air, the way the silence seemed to deepen, to press in on me, told me otherwise. I searched the playground, my heart hammering against my ribs, my breath catching in my throat. I called out again, "Hello!" My voice strained and thin. Silence. I checked behind the trees, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms, their leaves rustling with a sound that now seemed less like a whisper and more like a sigh. I looked under the slide, its paint peeling like sunburnt skin, and inside the hollow metal tunnel, its interior dark and echoing, filled with the ghosts of children's laughter and the faint metallic scent of rust and decay. But there was no sign of her. She had simply disappeared, as if swallowed by the shadows themselves. I ran all the way home, my breath ragged, my heart pounding, the image of the girl in the blue dress seared into my memory. I never went back to Baker's Grove. I never saw her again, but I never forgot her either. The memory lingered, a ghost in the back of my mind, a chilling reminder of the night I encountered something I couldn't explain, something that belonged to the shadows and the silence, something that still haunts the edges of my dreams. My fascination with mirrors began in the dusty antique shop on Bleecker Street. It wasn't the gleaming, modern mirrors that caught my eye, but the aged, tarnished ones, their silvering chipped and faded, their surfaces clouded with the ghosts of countless reflections. There was something about them, a sense of history, of secrets held captive within their depths, that both intrigued and unsettled me. It was in that cramped, dimly lit shop, smelling of beeswax and old paper, that I found the mirror that would change my life. It was a heavy oval-shaped mirror with an ornate silver frame, tarnished with age. Its surface was dulled, the reflection faintly distorted, as if the glass itself held a subtle curve, a bending of reality. The shopkeeper, a wizened old man with eyes like tarnished silver, told me it had come from an old estate upstate, a place with a complicated history. He looked at me knowingly as he said this, his eyes holding a glint of something I couldn't quite decipher. I paid him $20, more than I could afford at the time, and lugged the heavy mirror back to my tiny Greenwich Village apartment. I hung it above the chipped enamel sink in the cramped bathroom. It was a strange addition to the otherwise modern space, its antique presence a jarring contrast to the sleek lines and minimalist decor. But I was drawn to it, compelled to gaze into its depths, to search for something I couldn't quite define, a flicker of something different, a hint of something other lurking just beneath the surface of my own reflection. It started subtly, a fleeting movement at the edge of my vision, a subtle shift in the lighting, a feeling of being watched, of something unseen peering back from the other side of the glass. I dismiss it as a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination, but the unease lingered, a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, a cold knot in my stomach. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, the city outside humming with its usual symphony of sirens and distant laughter, the bathroom illuminated by the soft glow of the overhead light, I saw it. It wasn't a sudden, shocking apparition, but a gradual, almost imperceptible shift in my reflection. My eyes, normally a warm hazel, seemed to darken, taking on a chilling, almost metallic sheen. The lines around my mouth deepened, the corners of my lips twitching into a subtle, predatory smile. It wasn't me, not exactly. It was a version of me, a twisted, distorted reflection that seemed to mock my humanity, to revel in its own sinister beauty. I tried to look away, to break the gaze, but I was trapped, caught in the mirror's hypnotic pull. My reflection's smile widened, stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth, the canines elongated, predatory. Its eyes, now completely black, seemed to burn into mine, filled with an ancient, predatory hunger. A wave of icy terror washed over me, so profound it stole my breath, paralyzed my limbs, froze my thoughts in their tracks. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but my voice was trapped in my throat, a silent plea lost in the suffocating silence of the bathroom. The air grew thick and heavy, the scent of dust and decay filling my nostrils, a primal fear clutching at my heart. The reflection leaned closer, its breath a cold, fetid wind against my skin, its voice a guttural rasp in my mind. "We are one now," it whispered, its words slithering into my consciousness like venomous snakes. Panic surged through me. I thrashed against the invisible bonds that held me captive, my heart hammering against my ribs, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I shut my eyes tightly, squeezing them shut against the terrifying image, but I could still feel its presence, cold and suffocating, pressing down on me, stealing the air from my lungs. Finally gathering all my strength, I ripped my gaze from the mirror, stumbling back until my spine hit the cold tile wall. The monstrous reflection was gone. My own familiar face stared back at me, my eyes wide with terror, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The image of that other face, those alien eyes seared into my memory. I covered the mirror with a sheet, hiding its reflection from my sight. But I couldn't escape the feeling that it was still there, watching me, waiting for me, its sinister presence lurking just beneath the surface. A constant reminder of the night my reflection stole a piece of me, and left something cold and alien in its place. And sometimes, late at night, when the city sleeps and the shadows grow long, I can still feel its gaze, cold and predatory. A chilling reminder that the mirror holds more than just my reflection. It holds something else, something dark and hungry, something that knows my deepest fears and waits patiently for its chance to claim me as its own.